ladies and gentlemen, we're back again for another week of Stoned Appetit. But before we get started, we want to give a shout out to our friends over at Live Nation Colorado and the Fillmore Denver. As y'all listen to this, we're getting ramped up for a big October. We got shows like James Blake, Eamon Armith, Kay Flay, Lizzo, the Lizzo coming to town. A Day to Remember. We got a Marilyn Manson. We have a knockout calendar for you this month. So make sure you're following along on both social media and check the Live Nation website. That's www.livenation.com. And then don't forget on Instagram, it's at Fillmore Den, D-E-N. They're doing show announcements, ticket giveaways, grab bags, all sorts of stuff. You got to be following along if you want a chance to win. How else are you going to find your way into a Lizzo ticket? It's probably the most coveted thing you can find in this damn town. Without further ado, we're excited to have this week's guest, Ben Owens from CannaVenture, join us. But before we get started, make sure you're following everyone online. Go on Instagram. Follow us at Stoned Appetit with a little underscore at the end. Go follow at Fillmore Den, D-E-N. And then go follow Live Nation Colorado. That's at Live Nation CO. You can hear how fired up I am. Well, that's because we haven't smoked our weed yet. So without further ado, Zane, hit that music. Let's get this party started.
The suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
It's one of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Wheaties! I got Wheatie pots!
Get it.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty casual. It's a good time. And, I mean, between getting lit and then having a
I feel
couple...
like we should all have headphones.
If we had collars, then I would, but really the only reason I wear them is to make sure that nobody's, screaming into the mic.
Yeah.
So otherwise, you're good. I'll let you know.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But, yeah, let's get we'll get this party started. If we were to edit, as if we ever pretended to, we can start editing right here. So we'll go, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another week of Stoned Appetit. As y'all may have recalled from all of our social medias, we switched everything over to our handle is Stoned Appetit _afterwards online. So be sure you're following along on the fun. And then the podcast now, you can search all your places. Search Stoned Appetit wherever you were searching No Vacancy Colorado. We just switched everything over to Stoned Appetit so that we could spread the word past the great state of Colorado. But we are still here in Colorado. We are always going to promote Colorado businesses, and we're stoked about the ones that we're going to be promoting today. With me, as always, by the way, this is Kip. I mean, there's no point even doing these fucking introductions anymore, but to my right, as always, is old CB. Bama, how are you, Bubba?
I'm 35 now.
Dude, yeah, we celebrated your birthday last weekend.
Yeah.
I had a wedding I had to go to, but y'all went out to eat some nice restaurants, partied a little bit.
Yeah, and I see you all the time, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even look that much older. You still look like dirt.
Yeah.
But that's why we do a podcast and not a television show yet.
But anyways, big things happening in 35, so this podcast is about to take off. I can feel it.
I feel like, and this may be one of our best episodes to date. We're sitting here today with a local business owner from Colorado, Mr. Ben Owens. The man behind...
guys?
Hey, Ben, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Dude, thanks for joining us. We're excited to have you on. For those that maybe don't know Ben, Ben owns and created a company called CannaVenture, which is one of the funnest jobs I have ever heard in my life. It sounds like it's a really neat opportunity where you've been able to blend things that you are passionate about, which is something we like to get to the bottom of. And I'm going to let you kind of get into the nitty gritty. But before we get this party started, I want to give a couple shout outs because that's why this podcast does its thing. Kyle, we're down here recording today because we wanted a nice libation on a gorgeous Tuesday afternoon. And we're down here at Colorado Sake Company. For those that don't know, that's at 3559 Larimer. It's like at the end of Rhino. Just go down Larimer past Dio Mio and all those other bars. It's right there before that Downing little 5-way clusterfuck. And they have money drinks. It's gluten-free. It's vegan-friendly. They have about 12 or 16 different variations on tap, and they brew it in-house. And so they're one of 10 distillers in the country. We've had them on the podcast before, but we love them so much we come back here just for casual drinks. So we figured we'd have Ben join us up here because this place is gnarly as shit. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. Oh, and who do we want to thank for paying the bills this week, Chris?
Live Nation, Fillmore, Denver.
There we go.
Holy shit, they got some hot things coming up.
Angels and Airwaves is actually tonight. So for those that are listening to this on the way to work, check out livenation.com. You may be able to snag a ticket. If not, man, do we have a decked out. I mean, we got a big September. So we love our boys over at Live Nation, and especially the Fillmore for bringing the hammer. But, Chris, do the honors of what we always do. Get us into this conversation for the day.
All right, my man Ben. Are you a transplant or a native?
I am a transplant.
Where are we coming from?
Originally, I'm from Arizona. Before Colorado, I was in Chicago. And so came out here, started working in the counterculture. And I've got a background in the outdoors. I love cannabis. And my degrees are in marketing and journalism, so I've kind of found a way to meld them all in this legal
nice.
area.
So hold on, okay. So
did you come out here for the herbivore, or
So I actually came out here. At the time I was married, my wife at the time got a job. I worked remotely as a freelance copywriter. I was working for a couple agencies. I had a buddy who had a startup in Southern Illinois, and we kind of worked through my relocating, and that allowed me, I could work from anywhere being remote. So the legal cannabis aspect was just kind of a bonus. When I got here, I started looking for people who wanted to be outdoorsy, people who were active cannabis smokers or consumers, but those that kind of defied that stereotype. And I figured with hikes at every kind of corner, there would be like a group that existed already for doing this. And largely because of the way the legal situation is with public consumption, there wasn't.
And by this you mean, we mentioned CannaVenture, but it's an outdoor...
Yeah, so it's an outdoor cannabis event service, essentially. From April through October, we do a monthly hike in Colorado. They're free to the public because they're out on public land. They're also consume at your own risk, which means that, obviously we're targeting a 21-plus crowd, but if it's the same risk as if you and a buddy went on the trail and wanted to smoke a spliff, like, you're assuming that risk. If you choose not to smoke, you choose not to smoke.
It's the same as speeding, or in my eyes, we understand the risk we take in taking this chance of breaking the law. But you've created a group where people can do it as fun.
Yeah. And
like-minded
folks. If you want to smoke beforehand, we have a lot of people who, prepare ahead of time. But the idea is that, you're enjoying your high, you're outdoors, you're enjoying a lot of the Colorado natural beauty. We have so many trails in Colorado. You could go to a different trail every weekend your entire life and still not see the whole state.
But on that point, even if you don't smoke weed and you may want to or if you don't feel like smoking weed when you go on hikes, you can meet other cannabis smokers who like to
like-minded folks that enjoy to have the same time.
We end up with actually a lot of out-of-towners. I would say average between about a third to a half of our attendees are from out of state, especially on big weekends like 420 and things like that, where people are already coming in for the weekend and, they're just trying to look for different activities that can hit the variety of what Colorado has to offer.
Now, how far have you traveled from the Denver area?
So we try to stay within about 2.5 hours of Denver. I would say that a couple of our campouts have pushed that limit to closer to 3 hours. But for hikes and stuff, we spread them out. Fort Collins is about as north as we go. And then I guess we did Florissant, which was where our backpacking trip was. So, about that range. But I would say as long as I-25 isn't a cluster, a 2.5 hour stint.
I got you.
And the best part about this is also I keep saying the word like-minded, but then it's also like a carpool system. So like if for someone that wants to be able to go do these backpacking trips, but maybe doesn't have the means of having all the gear, you can join up in one of these groups. And, you mentioned something like people from out of town come and do it. That's a nice thing that folks are kind of out and about. Rather, like you see the party buses and like the limos that will be full of, people going through marijuana tours, but being able to kind of embrace both of them. Obviously, you try to fine line on the federal law thing, which, could be changed any minute now. But
yeah, we stay away from any national parks, federal lands, any BLM land. So we stick to state parks, counties, open spaces, city, parks, those things. Anything that's managed locally. That's the best bet for cannabis. And I advise that for people anywhere. If you're in an area that has decriminalized cannabis, whether it's Colorado or whether it's Missouri or wherever you may be, your state and your city and your local officials are usually going to be the ones that you're going to have more sway with, and you're going to be in an easier position, especially as they decriminalized way before the feds have.
So you're from another place, and you mentioned Missouri and other states. Do you ever have the premise to maybe take in the concept outside of Colorado, go party other states, show everybody else how to party?
We've actually had out-of-state events. We had a hemp hike. Our first out-of-state event was held in Tennessee, out in Pikeville area.
Is that like Eastern Tennessee in the Appalachia?
Yeah, so it's at Fall Creek Falls. So I got a buddy of mine out there, Trevor, who...
Shout out Trevor.
Yeah, shout out Trevor. He came out to our April hike in the pouring rain out here in Denver, and had a blast, so much so that he wanted to start kind of his own little chapter of it out in Tennessee. And so, we've started kind of small, and he's planning hikes now, and we're going to kind of build the audience up. But the hemp crowd, both businesses and consumers, has been very receptive. They had the first hike, as I said, at the end of last month. We've already, made some really good strides with hemp. I believe that Hempnotics is the sponsor, and they sponsored the last hike, so really excited to have them on board. And in the next month, the beginning of October, we're doing our first hike in North Carolina under the same premise of a hemp hike, smokable hemp with, the allowable THC content is legal, which is great. And it's going to be focused solely on the Glassroots art show. So Glassroots has been doing an art show for the last decade out in Madison, Wisconsin. And this year they moved it to Asheville, North Carolina. And so we're...
That's like an East Coast Boulder. It's real crunchy.
Yeah.
Asheville's pretty gnarly.
It is it's a neat little town.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck people do there, but if they work in like restaurants or something, like...
It's a lot of people, like, they braid each other's hair. It reminds me a lot of, like, the people that make money panhandling on Pearl Street in Boulder, who, like, my first couple of years in Denver, they made more money than I did. Like, that's just straight motherfucking facts. So that's what they do there.
So are you going to North Carolina for this?
Yeah, so I'll be leading the Asheville hike with a company called Glass X. They've got a couple cool guys, Joe and Noah, that we're going to be working with. They're our local partners. And they're kind of like a wholesale glass collective. They help artists kind of distribute their glass to a large audience. And it's all like local blowers, and they got some really cool stuff. So working with them to throw the first Glassroots hike. It's going to be the day before the Glassroots trade show. So if you're in the area or you plan to be at that show, definitely shoot us an email, find us on social, because... Yeah, we're keeping it close to the industry.
Do a seamless plug. What are the
dude. What's your social?
So social would be CannaVenture on Instagram, or CannaVenture USA on Twitter, or CannaVenture as well on Facebook, and CannaVenture.org would be the website.
So is that like Canna, like CANNA?
CANNAVENTURE.org.
Okay. I got you.
Our groups, we're not big spellers. Our listeners aren't big spellers or readers. So if you,
this isn't a fucking
shout out to Denise who tried to give me a book.
Okay, hold on. Reading. I feel like we jumped ahead. So first thing I want to ask you really quick though is the shittiest thing about living in Chicago and the best thing about living in Chicago.
Oh man!
Before you came out here.
I love the food culture of Chicago. It's probably the one thing I miss the most. One of the worst things about Chicago was the lack of, like, nature. I mean, like, aside from running Lakeshore, aside